Is the T-Mobile Revvl V Plus 5G a good phone to buy in 2021? Well, in this video, we're gonna find out. What's going on, guys? Kalipis Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're gonna be taking a look at the T-Mobile Revvl V Plus 5G and going over what kind of value it provides in 2021. Now, before we go any further, I do want to remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot. But with that being said, let's get into the video. So this phone has a 6.82-inch IPS LCD display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 263, and an aspect ratio of 20:9. This is a really large display and it's going to be perfect for content consumption. So if you're streaming videos, viewing photos, playing a game, pretty much anything, having a large display like this is going to be a good thing. The only potential drawback to it is that it is a little bit bulky and just a big phone in general. So if you don't want to carry something big like this in your pocket, then it could be a little bit of a drawback. But otherwise, having a big display is always going to be a helpful thing. We got a water drop notch up here for the front facing camera. This camera is 16 megapixels. Now, I'm not a big fan of water drop notches. They're kind of annoying. They don't look very clean, especially compared to the hole punch camera that most of the nicer looking phones have nowadays. But this one isn't too bad. It doesn't really do a whole lot to the look, so I'm okay with it. Overall, the phone's design isn't bad. I do like this material on the back. The T-Mobile colors, everything really ties it together. My only complaint about it is really not so much of a problem for me, but again, if you don't like to carry a large device, then this is probably not going to be the phone for you because this phone is big. I personally like it, but I know not everyone out there will, so keep that in mind. For storage, this phone has 64 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion. So that's a good amount of storage, I would say, especially for the average user. You're probably not going to need more than that. If you're a power user and you have a ton of apps, then you might want to go up to 128. But if you just have a bunch of photos and videos and stuff like that, you can always store those on a microSD card, and that pretty much takes care of the problem. So again, for the average user, having 64 gigabytes of internal storage is going to be plenty. Now, there's no wireless charging for this phone, which is not very surprising, since pretty much no phone that's not a flagship phone has that feature. Although I wish it did, I really don't know why they don't just put it on every other phone. It doesn't seem like a very difficult or expensive feature to put on a phone, and most decent phones these days have NFC, which seems a lot more complicated than wireless charging. So again, I don't really know why they don't have it on every other phone now, but unfortunately they don't, so it's really not very surprising that it's not on this phone. But what this phone does have is face unlock and a really nice fingerprint scanner. The fingerprint scanner is right here on the power key, probably the best spot for it. I do like those in-display fingerprint scanners, they look pretty cool, but it's not nearly as practical as this one. Let me show you how fast it is. There we go, one more time. I'm gonna do it with the screen completely asleep this time. And boom, there we go. It's really fast and responsive. I have no complaints here. Overall, a really good fingerprint scanner, and if you don't really like using fingerprint scanners, you can always use Face Unlock instead. You have both those options, so if you don't want to put in a PIN or a password, which I don't blame you, those are annoying, the Face Unlock and fingerprint scanner will make sure that you don't have to. So for our rear camera setup, we got a 16 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. There's no macro camera here. I personally don't really care about that, but if you do like macro cameras, this is something to keep in mind because it doesn't have one, so you won't be able to get those super close-up pictures. But what it does have is an ultra-wide camera, and ultra-wide cameras are so useful. You can do all kinds of things with them. You can take group photos, maybe some sort of scenery, a picture of a large object, a picture of a room. The list really goes on. Such a cool feature with so many different ways you can use it, so I'm glad that this phone has it. To give you an idea of what this phone's camera can really do, here's a picture taken with the main camera. And as you can see, this is a really nice picture. The lighting, exposure, all that is handled really well. The colors are good, the sharpness is good. I really don't see anything wrong with this picture at all. This is a photo taken with the ultra wide camera, same kind of thing, really impressive. And it was taken from the same distance as the last photo. So as you can see, the ultra wide camera really does make a difference. So if you are into photography and want to take pictures that you can keep, this is definitely going to be a feature that you're going to want. This photo was taken with portrait mode. I was a bit skeptical of the portrait mode on this phone at first. I don't even really know why, I was just expecting it to be really bad, but this photo actually came out amazing. The background really does blend in, it's blurred appropriately, everything just looks good on it. So I can say with confidence, if you want to take photos that you're actually going to keep, maybe for social media or something like that, this phone's camera setup will get the job done. It might not have a ton of fancy features like some of the Samsung phones out there, and it doesn't have a macro camera, which kind of is a bummer if you really want all the features. But for really good, more basic photos, this camera setup is really all you're going to need. Now for video, this phone has a max shooting quality of 2K in the rear and the front cameras, which is a little interesting to me because usually when a phone can shoot higher quality videos than 1080p, in the lower price ranges especially, it usually can't do it in both cameras. Usually only the rear camera, and then the front facing camera is typically limited a little bit. But with this phone, it can shoot 2K in both the rear and the front cameras. And usually in this price range, I haven't even seen very many phones that can shoot above 1080p, so this is pretty impressive. To be fair, it's not the greatest thing in the world because I personally don't even see much of a use for 2K. At that point, it makes more sense to just get something that can shoot 4K, but that's really just my opinion. I couldn't see a use for it. But if you do have a use for it, if you see value in it, then being able to shoot 2K with this phone is just another great reason to get it. Internally, this phone is getting 4GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 700 processor. Now this processor, I gotta say, is really impressive. I ran a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on it, and it came back with a single core score of 541 and a multi-core score of a whopping 1692. Now keep in mind, this phone is not very expensive at all. It's technically priced around $199. And with T-Mobile's deals, a lot of people are going to be getting this phone for free. And this phone has a lot of processing power for a phone that you could potentially be getting for free. To put this into perspective, about 2-3 years ago, flagship phones tended to have a similar processing power to this. Nowadays, they're much higher, probably at least double this, but still, you're gonna be able to do pretty much anything you could reasonably wanna do on a phone with this phone. Even playing a higher end game like Call of Duty, Fortnite, that kind of stuff, it's not gonna be as good of an experience as say an iPhone 12 Pro Max or a Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, but it's still gonna work. And if you're looking for a more entry-level phone that has a ton of processing power, then this phone is by far one of the best options I've seen. The only phone close to this price range that has a similar amount of processing power is the Samsung Galaxy A22 5G, maybe the OnePlus Nord N200 5G, but that phone isn't quite at this level. So definitely, if processing power is a priority, I would strongly consider this phone because this is really impressive for this price range. Besides having a really good processor, this phone has an impressive battery too. With a 5000 mAh battery that supports 18 watt fast charging, you're gonna get a ton of battery life throughout the day. You're probably not gonna have to charge it, even if you use your phone a lot. Down the road, as your battery starts to wear out, it's not gonna really affect the phone's performance nearly as quickly as say an iPhone 12 that has just over a 2800 mAh battery. So as a result, with a large battery like this, you're not gonna have to replace the phone nearly as quickly as you would with one of those other phones that doesn't have a big battery. And not only does this phone just have a straight up big battery, but it also supports 18 watt fast charging. Now, if you're in a situation where you can just plug your phone in all day, then this isn't really gonna add much value for you. But if you're in a hurry to get your phone charged up or at least get a little bit more life in it before you have to go somewhere or something like that, the fast charging is really gonna help, and it's gonna charge up a lot more in a much shorter amount of time. Another really cool thing about this phone that I appreciate is NFC. This phone actually does have NFC, and that's impressive to me, even though I feel like pretty much every phone these days should have it, because a lot of phones, even ones that are higher priced than this one, don't have it, and that's always annoying to me because it's such a useful feature. In case you don't know what NFC is, it's the technology behind contactless mobile payment services like Google Pay, Samsung Pay, Apple Pay, all that. And you need NFC to even be able to use those services. So if you have a phone that doesn't have NFC, then you can't use Google Pay or anything like that. And I feel like that's such a drawback because that feature is becoming more and more widely used, widely accepted. Everybody's been using it nowadays. So I do think pretty much any phone made after 2021 should have it. In my opinion, it should really just come standard with everything. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's gonna be like that. So it is nice to see that at least some of the nice phones like this one do have that feature. So in conclusion, when you buy the T-Mobile Revvl V Plus 5G, what kind of value are you getting for the money? I feel like you're getting a whole lot. There's really not a lot I don't like about this phone. It has a great processor, a really large display that's gonna be good for content consumption, a decent amount of storage, a nice camera setup, NFC, and a huge battery. I guess the only room for improvement I could see with this phone is maybe give it a 1080p display, give it a macro camera, but change the design in a way that makes it less bulky. This phone is on the thicker side, and the bezels are a little big too, so I really think they could cut down on this. I mean, what is this? And then up here with the water drop notch, they could really do a better job just cleaning things up a little bit, making it look a little more sleek and modern. And after that, I think the design of the phone would be so much better. But overall, if you're looking for a phone with lots of nice features, a large battery, a super powerful processor, a good camera, and a large display, then the T-Mobile Revvl V Plus 5G is a great option. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you found this information useful as well. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video.